Hi, good morning. So today we are going to see what are the various steps we require to design Jdbc application. If you want to design any Jdbc application, or if you want to interact with a database from Java application, mainly we require 5 steps. What are the 5 steps here we require? Step number 1, load and register driver. This is step number 1. Step number 2, establish connection between Java application and a database. Number 3, create either a statement or prepared statement or callable statement. As per application requirement. Next one, write and execute SQL queries. Number 5, close statement and connection. Overall, these are the 5 steps we have to design Jdbc application. Step number 1, load and register the driver. Step number 2, establish the connection between Java application and database. Step number 3, prepare either statement object or prepared statement object or a callable statement object. And next one, write and execute SQL queries. And finally, close statement or connection. Before moving for all these 5 steps, first of all, what is Jdbc? What exactly the meaning of Jdbc? Jdbc is a step-by-step procedure to connect with the database from Java application in order to perform database operations from Java application. Jdbc is a technology. Jdbc is an API which includes some predefined library in the form of predefined classes and predefined interfaces, which will provide very good environment to interact with the database from Java application in order to perform database operations. Jdbc is an abstraction provided by Sun Microsystems, which includes mainly interfaces with a declarative part, which could be implemented by all the database vendors. Oracle has provided one implementation, MySQL has provided one implementation, SQL Server has provided one implementation, DBT has provided one implementation, and so on. Number of database vendors have provided their own implementations. This is clearly database management, Jdbc, Java database connectivity mainly. If you want to implement Jdbc applications, or if you want to connect with the database from Java applications in order to perform database operations, mainly we have to use 5 steps. First one is load and register driver. Second one is establish a connection between Java application and a database. Third one is create either statement object or a prepared statement object or a callable statement object as per the application requirement. Next one is write and execute SQL queries. After executing SQL queries, we have to close the connection and as well as statement. These are the various steps we require to design JDBC application. Right, if we consider JDBC application development and all the steps in a particular representation, I want to take some example. Let us see, for example, this is database. This is database. In a database, for example, I have an employee table, EMP table. In EMP table, I have some columns, ENO and ENAME and ECell. These columns are existed. Assume some data we have 111 AAA 5000 salary, 222 BBB and 6000 as a salary, 333 CCC 7000 as a salary. This is database. In the database EMP table, in EMP table 3 columns I have taken and some data is already existed. Whenever we have taken this is a database, automatically a tool is maintained by this database to execute all the SQL queries. What is the name of this tool? That is database engine. The purpose of this database engine is to execute the SQL queries which is coming to the database. By executing that SQL queries, it is able to perform some database operations. When an SQL query is submitted to database engine will execute that SQL query by following some steps. What are the steps are performed by database engine to execute SQL queries? No. First one is query tokenization. The first one is query tokenization. Second one is query parsing. And third one is query optimization. And fourth one will be query execution. When we submit an SQL query to database engine will take that SQL query. Database engine will execute that SQL query by following these 4 steps: query tokenization, query parsing, query optimization, query execution. Query tokenization is nothing but dividing SQL query into number of pieces, where each and every piece is called as a token. A stream of tokens are generated from query tokenization phase. That stream of tokens are given as an input to query parsing. Where query parsing phase purpose is which one? It can be used to check all the grammatical mistakes, all the syntax errors, all the semantic errors, all the lexical errors in the provided SQL query. Parse errors it will check by constructing a tree representation. The tree is called as query tree. Whenever query tree is success, no syntax errors in the provided SQL query. If query tree is failure, then there are some syntax errors in the provided SQL query. Whenever query tree is created by query parsing phase, that query tree will be given to query optimization phase. Query optimization phase will apply number of optimization algorithms on the query tree in order to reduce execution time, in order to reduce memory utilization. Whenever query tree is optimized, then that phase will be given to query execution phase. Query execution phase will execute that optimized query and it will perform the respective database action. Maybe inserting the data in database or retrieving the data from database or updating the data available in database depending on our SQL query what you have written. So these are the phases are performed by database engine or server to perform our database operations. Fine. This is about database and database engine. What database engine is performing? All the steps here. Now my intention is which one? I don't want to interact with the database from command prompt or SQL prompt. Just I want to interact with the database from Java application. To interact with the database from Java application, we need some Jdbc support clearly. Fine. This is database and database engine is available. And next one, I need to go for Java program. Now this is my Java application. We need to identify. This is Java application, what I prepared. Whenever we prepare this Java application and where database and database engine is ready, then immediately step number 1 we have to implement here. What is that step number 1? Load and register the driver. First of all, what is the meaning of the driver? What is the purpose of the driver before loading and registration of the driver? Point is very clear. We are able to write the database logic and everything in Java representations. The Java representations are not recognized by database engine directly. Database engine is required database logic in query languages. But here we are providing our database logic in Java representations. So in this particular situation, to execute our Jdbc programs, we require some mapping between Java and query languages. To have mapping between Java and query languages, we are going to use some kind of softwares. That software is called as a driver. Driver is an interface existed between Java application and database. It can be used to map Java representations to query language representations and from query language representations to Java representations. Now as a first step, I need to load and register the driver. So for that purpose, I need to go for step number 1. Before that, driver is an interface provided by Sun Microsystems whose implementations are provided by database vendors. So Sun Microsystems is also having its own driver that is managed by Sun Microsystems or Oracle up to Java 7 version. That is type 1 driver sun.jdbc.odbc.jdbc driver. That sun.jdbc.odbc.jdbc driver was removed by Java 8 version. That means that the type 1 driver is managed by Sun Microsystems or Oracle Corporation up to Java 7 version. The type 1 driver is not managed by Java 8 version onwards. Fine, we need to go for the remaining drivers. There are nearly 5 types of drivers we have: type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4 and type 5 driver. Type 5 driver is a data direct driver. Just that proposal is available in outside market, 100% implementations are not available. So no third party vendor has implemented exactly the type 5 driver still. So in outside market still, type 4 driver is utilized in Jdbc applications. Right, type 1 driver is not available. Type 4 driver is a frequently used driver in outside market. If you observe this Oracle provided type 4 driver in outside market, oracle.jdbc.oracle driver. This is a driver class provided by Oracle Corporation. This class is implementing java.sql.driver interface directly. This is what exactly the driver information. So as a first step, I want to load and register the driver clearly. Fine, for that purpose, first I need to make ready, this is the driver. Just I want to call a general name, Jdbc driver, that's all. I am not using any particular type name, but by default we can understand Oracle provided type 4 driver I am using for example. So in general I am calling it as which one? Jdbc driver, that is specified here. Fine, to load and register this Jdbc driver, here we need to use one intersection clearly. What is the intersection here? I need to use now. This is step number 1, of course. That intersection will be which one? Class dot for name method I need to use. Class dot for name method. Inside this class dot for name method, I need to go for driver class name. Anyway, type 1 driver we can use, or type 4 driver we can use, anything as per our requirement. Which database we are using, on the base of the database we are able to use the required driver. Now at present I want to use type 4 driver provided by Oracle Corporation. If we come for this type 4 driver, we need to go for Oracle dot JDBC dot, right, simply Oracle driver we need to use Oracle driver. Previously up to Oracle 9i version, Oracle dot JDBC dot driver dot Oracle driver class is managed, but right from Oracle 9i version onwards, the driver class is deprecated. In place of the driver class, a new driver class is provided, that is Oracle dot JDBC dot Oracle driver. Fine. When JVM encounter this intersection, class dot forName method, as per the functionality of forName method, JVM will take the provided driver class name. JVM will search for Oracle driver dot class file in the current location under Java predefined library and at the locations referred by class path environment variable. Of course, already we set Jdbc 6.jar file which contains this Oracle driver dot class file to class path environment variable. As per that, JVM will identify Oracle dot JDBC dot Oracle driver dot class file in Jdbc 6.jar file whose location was set to class path environment variable. When JVM identify Oracle dot JDBC dot Oracle driver dot class file, JVM will take the dot class file. JVM will pick up bytecode from this dot class file. JVM will load that bytecode to the memory. Whenever JVM is loading that bytecode to the memory, driver class bytecode to the memory, in the driver class a static block is available. JVM will execute that static block as per its static context recognition and execution. At the time of executing static block, a method call will be executed. That method call will be driver manager dot register driver method. This method call is available in the static block of Oracle driver class. So whenever JVM is identifying Oracle driver dot class file, then JVM will load its bytecode to the memory. At the time of loading bytecode to the memory, a static block will be executed. At the time of executing static block, automatically driver manager dot register driver method will be executed. By the execution of driver manager dot register driver method only, that respective driver will be activated or set up for our JDBC application. That's all. This is a story behind loading and registration of the driver. It means that the main method what we require to register the driver is driver manager dot register driver. Of course, if you don't want to use class.forName method in our JDBC application, directly we can use driver manager.register driver method. By that also, driver will be registered for our JDBC application. That's all. This is a clarity what I am telling you now. Next one, this is step number 1, what I implemented. After completion of this step number 1, I need to establish the connection between Java application and a database. I have to establish a connection between Java application and database. Now, to establish a connection between Java application and database, here I need to use one intersection. What exactly the intersection? Here I have to use now. Simply, I need to write connection con is equal to, I need to use one method, driver manager dot connection con is equal to driver manager dot get connection method we need to use. Get connection. This get connection method is having 3 parameters. First parameter will be driver URL. From driver to driver, driver class name is changed, driver URL will be changed. So among 3 parameters of get connection method, first parameter is driver URL, second parameter is database username, third parameter is database password. So in the case of type 4 driver provided by Oracle, I need to provide one driver URL. What is the driver URL here? Clearly that will be JDBC colon Oracle colon thin colon @ localhost colon 1521 colon. If you are using Oracle XE as a database version, so we can use the XE. Or if you are using Oracle Enterprise as a version, then where we can use ORCL. We can use either of these things here. Now for example, I am using Express Edition, so that I am using which one? XE as a service ID. Fine. This URL is having three parts actually. First one is main protocol. JDBC is a main protocol. Second one is which one? Sub protocol. The remaining part up to this port number is a sub protocol. The next one is which one? Either service ID or we can say database name. Fine. We can use the other three ports inside the respective driver URL. After completion of which, I need to specify driver user database username and password. I want to say system is a database username and database password is which one? Manager in my content here. That's all. This is about the intersection what we required to establish a connection between Java application and database here clearly. Connection con is equal to driver manage.get connection JDBC colon Oracle colon thin colon @localhost colon 1521 colon XE comma database username system database password is which one? Is a manager. This is the length intersection what we need to identify. If we come for this intersection, whenever we are calling driver manager.get connection method, when a JVM encounter driver manager.get connection method, then JVM will execute get connection method. When JVM is executing get connection method is internally calling driver.connect method. Internally one more method is called. That method is which one? Driver.connect method. The driver.connect method will establish the socket connection between Java application and the respective database server. Where which method is called here? Driver.connect method inside get connection method. Whenever socket connection is established between Java application and database, after that a connection object will be returned by get connection method. So connection method will return a connection object. Here we can identify connection con like this. In general we can say this is a connection object. Immediately here one question will be raised in general. What is the question will be raised now? Connection is an interface in JDBC. How it is possible for driver manager.get connection method to return connection object? Here in general terminology we are saying connection object is returned by get connection method, but really get connection method is not creating object for connection interface. In entire Java J2EE, it is not at all possible to create object for interfaces. So in this case what is going on internally? The internal concept is which one? Connection is an interface provided by Sun Microsystems whose implementation classes are provided by the respective database vendors. All the database vendors have provided implementation classes for connection interface as part of their JDBC implementation part. Similarly, Oracle has provided one implementation class for this connection interface as part of its JDBC implementation part. In our example also, we are using Oracle provided JDBC implementation so that the respective get connection method will identify Oracle provided implementation class of this connection interface, and get connection method will create object for that connection interface implementation class. That connection interface implementation class object will be written by get connection method. So get connection method is not creating any object for the respective connection. Fine. By using this intersection, we establish a connection between Java application and a database key. After completion of this second step, step number 3, we need to use which one? Like prepare either statement or callable statement or a prepared statement here. First we need to understand in which situations we are going to use statement object, in which situation we are going to use prepared statement, in which situation we are going to use like a callable statement here. If we come for these points, when we have a requirement in JDBC applications to execute all the SQL queries independently as a new SQL query without having any relation between previous SQL query and present SQL query, then where we have to go for statement. The statement purpose is which one? Whenever we have a requirement to execute all the SQL queries independently, every time treating that SQL query as a new SQL query, then in that situation we have to go for statement. In JDBC applications, when we have a requirement to execute the same SQL query in the next sequence, that means I want to insert 100 number of records on database table. Whenever we want to insert 100 number of employee records onto the database table, 100 times we have to execute insert SQL query. In that particular situation, that means whenever we have a requirement to execute the same SQL query in the next sequence, where to improve the performance of the JDBC applications, we have to go for prepared statement. For this requirement, we can use statement. But what is going on internally if we use statement now? Even though the SQL query is same every time, but database engine will treat that SQL query is a new SQL query, then it will perform tokenization, parsing, optimization and execution every time. It's a time-waste process. What database engine is doing every time this entire query processing. But if you use prepared statement, only one time all the things are going to be processed, but under number of records we can insert onto the database table. That means one time performing of tokenization, parsing, optimization and execution, when compared with 100 time performing, automatically some execution time will be reduced, automatically some performance will be improved here. Fine, this is a purpose to go for prepared statement. Then what is the requirement to go for callable statement? The main intention to go for callable statement, whenever we have a requirement to access stored procedures and functions available at database side from Java application. That means at database side, stored procedures and functions are available. I want to access them from Java application as part of my database interaction requirement, then where I need to go for callable statement. So final clarity is which one? Statement will be used to execute all the SQL queries independently as a new SQL query. Prepared statement will be utilized when we have a requirement to execute the same SQL query in the next sequence, where to improve the performance of the JDBC application, we have to go for prepared statement. In JDBC applications, we will go for callable statement when we have a requirement to access stored procedures and functions are available at a database from Java application, there we have to go for callable statement. Fine, at a basic level, I want to prepare statement object. To prepare this statement object, I have to use one intersection. That intersection will be which one? Simply statement st is equal to con dot create statement. Statement st is equal to con dot create statement. Here also the same story. Whenever we are calling create statement method will identify statement interface implementation class provided by database vendor. Create statement method will create object for it, and a create statement method will return that implementation class object of statement interface to outside. That value, the generated reference value, we captured in the form of st variable. This is a clear-cut information I am telling them. So this is a way to create statement object here. Fine. Step number 4. I want to write and execute the SQL queries. To write and execute the SQL queries, we need to use some instructions here now. Mainly 3 methods we need to use from statement. What are the 3 methods here we are going to use now? The first one will be execute query method, and the second one will be execute update method, and the third one will be execute method. Overall, 3 methods you are going to use from statement to write and execute SQL queries. First one is execute query method, second one is execute update method, and third one is execute method. Here we have a question. What is the difference between execute query, execute update and execute method? If we come for this particular point, execute query method can be used to execute only select SQL queries. In a database, SQL queries, select SQL queries, non-select SQL queries. To execute only select SQL queries, we are able to use execute query method. Fine. To execute non-select SQL queries, we will use execute update method. To execute non-select SQL queries, we will use only execute update method. To execute both the types of SQL queries, select SQL queries, non-select SQL queries, we will utilize execute method. Overall here, 3 methods are available. The execute query method will be used to execute select SQL queries. Execute update method will be used to execute non-select SQL queries. Execute method will be used to execute both the types of SQL queries. For example, here I want to take one execute query methods. We can identify result set rs is equal to st dot execute query method. As a parameter to execute query method, I need to provide select SQL query. Select a star from, like we need to see EMP1. This is a SQL query we have provided. Whenever we have provided this SQL query, simply that SQL query will be taken by JVM, and JVM will take that SQL query, and JVM will submit that SQL query to which one? Jdbc driver. Whenever Jdbc driver is taking that SQL query, that will be given to which one? No, connection. Whenever that query is coming to connection, connection will carry that SQL query to database engine. Now, database engine will perform 4 actions clearly. Already we are aware about these actions: query tokenization, query parsing, query optimization, query execution. Whenever these actions are performed here, automatically that SQL query will be executed. The nature of the select SQL query is retrieving the data from database table. Then immediately database engine will retrieve the data from database kernel. Database engine will return the data to connection. Now connection will carry the data, table data to Jdbc driver. Now Jdbc driver will keep the complete retrieved data, fetched data in the form of an object. That object will be given to Java program. At Java side, an object is stored to fetch the data, to store the fetched data 111 AAA and 5000 for example, and 222 BBB and 6000 for example, 333 CCC 7000. Whatever the object is prepared by Jdbc driver at Java program with that fetched data, that object is called as which one? Result set object. So here what is a result set object? Result set is an object, it able to store the complete fetched data from database table by executing that select SQL query. When we execute select SQL query, some data will be fetched from database table. The data will be stored. The data will be stored by in the form of result set object. This result set object is prepared by which one? Jdbc driver. By this execute query method functionality we can identify. Next one, if we come for the next one is which one? Execute update method. This execute update method can be used to execute non-select SQL queries. Let's say for example, here I want to take into row count. Into row count is equal to st dot execute update method of non-select SQL query I want to write. For example, update emp1 set esal. For example, emp, not emp1, emp set esal is equal to esal plus 500, where esal less than 10,000. This is a SQL query I have written. Int row count is equal to st dot execute update emp set esal is equal to esal plus 500, where esal less than 10,000. That SQL query we have given. When JVM encounter this intersection, again what is going on here? Now simply JVM will take that SQL query. JVM will give that SQL query to Jdbc driver. Jdbc driver will carry that SQL query to connection. Connection will carry that SQL query to database engine. Database engine will perform 4 steps here: tokenization, parsing, optimization and execution. And database engine is performing updations on database table. Let's say for example, 3 records are updated. This is 5500, 6500 and 7500. 3 records are got updated. Then how many number of records are updated at database table? That integer number, here 3 is an integer number. That integer number is nothing but row count value. That row count value will be taken by database engine. That value will be given to connection. Connection will carry that value to Jdbc driver, and Jdbc driver will return that integer value to Java program kernel. That means that integer value is nothing but which one? Row count value. Some 3 as a value we are getting now. This row count value will be written by execute update method. That row count value will be maintained in the form of a row count variable. In the case of execute query also, the fetch data is stored in the form of result set object. The generated result set object reference is returned to which one? No, RS variable here. Once you are getting data in the form of result set, it is very simple to retrieve the data from result set object here. This is about clearly which one? Execute update method. After completion of it, now coming for this execute method. This execute method will be used to execute both types of SQL queries. The return type of this execute method is Boolean actually. It is not like result set, it is not like integer here now. Now how this execute method will be executed? Very simple point here. Now for example, Boolean B1 is equal to st dot execute of select SQL query I will use. Select a star from EMP1, EMP again. When JVM encounter this method, JVM will take the select SQL query. As usual procedure, that will be given to Jdbc driver. Jdbc will pass that query to connection. Connection will carry that query to database engine. Database engine will execute all the 4 steps, and database engine will fetch the data from database table. Database engine will give the data to connection. Connection will carry the data to Jdbc driver. Jdbc driver will store the complete data in the form of result set object. At Java program, result set object is created, but as per the predefined implementation of execute method, true as a value will be returned. System.out.println of B1, if we store there, then which output I am able to get here? True as a value I am able to get. This is going on here clearly. Next one, after completion of this one, next one will be which one? If we execute Boolean B2 is equal to st dot execute of update SQL query I want to write. Update EMP set ESAL is equal to ESAL plus 500, where ESAL less than 10,000. If you provide like this, again what is going on? JVM will take that SQL query, will be sent to Jdbc driver, will be given to connection. Connection will carry that to database engine. Database engine will perform updations on database table. Row count value is identified. That row count value was given to connection. Connection will carry that row count value to Jdbc driver. Jdbc driver will submit that row count value to Java program. But as per the predefined implementation of execute method, that false as a Boolean value will be specified to this Boolean variable. So in this case, system.out.println of B2, if we specify, here output will be which one? False we are able to get as an output. True as an output in the case of executing select SQL query. False is an output we are getting in the case of executing update SQL query. That means non-select SQL query. So the functionality of execute method is which one? If execute method executes select SQL query, then it will return true as a return value. And if you execute update non-select SQL queries, in the case of execute method will return false as a return value here clearly. So this is about clearly step number 4, how we are going to write and execute all the SQL queries. Whenever we have executed our actual logic, our actual business logic is associated with only this 4th step. That means executing SQL queries is a main concept inside the Jdbc, where 3 methods we have: execute query, execute update method. We are able to execute select SQL queries by using execute query method. We are able to execute non-select SQL queries by using execute update. We are able to execute both the types of SQL queries by using which one? Execute method. Now this is a way to understand writing that SQL queries and executing that SQL queries now. Then after completion of this 4th step, that 5th step will be very simple here. Closing the statement object and closing the connection. Yes, it is a convention to close the connections. It is convention to close the statements in the Jdbc applications. Why it is convention now? After completion of our business logic execution, to avoid security issues after terminating our Jdbc program, it is a convention to close connection and statement here now. Simply we need to use st.close method, and the next one st. and con.close method we need to use. Con.close method, that's all. By using these 2 instructions, statement will be closed and connection will be closed. So this is overall view about our steps to design Jdbc applications, which contains mainly 5 steps. Step number 1, load and register the driver. For that, which instruction we have used? Class.forName of driver class name. Number 2, load and establish a connection between Java application and database. where which instruction here we have used connection con is equal to driver manager dot get connection, the driver URL, database username, database password we specified. Number 3, create a statement or prepared statement or callable statement, where statement object we prepared. For that, what is the instruction we have used statement st is equal to count.create statement method. Step number 4, write and execute SQL queries there. To write and execute SQL queries, 3 methods we are using: execute query method, execute update method, and execute method. Next, close the connection and statement. To close the statement, st.close method we have to use. To close the connection, we have to use count.close method. That's all about our Jdbc application development.